We've now been working on this project for more than 50 episodes, and most of it has been pretty smooth sailing. But I recently decided to up the challenge by like a lot. So we purchased a bunch of new map tiles, cranked up the tile upkeep cost to 200%, and spent more than 90% of our cash reserves on map changes and new infrastructure. We are now very much in the red, even after significant tax hikes. But as we're about to discover, we've also got deeply rooted problems in our power and water utilities, as well as our garbage management. So I think it's fair to say that we now have a real challenge ahead of us, balancing this new economic reality with the ever-growing needs of Easthaven County. Let's get started. Wow, okay, so this is a bit of a weird feeling, loading into Easthaven County with like actual concern about the future of our economy, because this deficit is just raging on. And I mean, of course, this was the point of the changes in the previous episode. The point was to make the economy and the simulation of our finances much more interesting, and that's certainly been achieved. But I have a little confession to make. I thought we had a lot more leeway in terms of our taxation rates through Easthaven County, because as far as I remembered, our taxation levels were really low across the board. I remember subsidizing especially residential and office development to like spur additional demand. But apparently that hasn't been the case for several months, and our taxation level is actually really high. So even with the small tax hikes we implemented in the previous episode, it didn't really touch our economy at all or cut into the deficit. And my experience tells me that we can't raise it much further than 12% maximum, because that is going to force some residents and some businesses out of their buildings, and that's going to reduce the overall or the absolute tax revenue. So I guess taxation is kind of off the board right now, and we're gonna have to fix our economy in other ways. Now, to make matters a little worse, you can probably see we've got a bit of a queue and traffic jam across the entire western segment of Chowder Bay here. And the main issue is this basic bridge we built a ton of episodes ago, as we wanted to connect Chowder Bay to West Point. Now, this bridge configuration was, I guess it was actually under capacity when we built it, but it's only getting worse and worse. So even though it might seem counterintuitive, we're gonna pause the game and spend a bit of cash committing to some upgrades here while I actually have the reserves and don't have to take out loans. Because the last thing we need is inefficient traffic to further hurt our economy. Now, fortunately, while the train traffic across this bridge is really quite busy and heavy, it's not at breaking point, so I think we can ignore it at this point in time. And there's a bit of a theme here. I'm gonna ignore things until they blow up in my face, and then I'm forced to fix it. Now, that may be bad gameplay habits, but in terms of like realistic city simulation, it's super realistic. I am the perfect simulated politician in that regard. As far as the symbol upgrade here, it's gonna be as simple as possible. I don't have the money or nerves to commit to anything more fancy than simply upgrading this to a 2-lane configuration. So we have selected the elevated segment. I'm gonna disable snapping because, as you can probably see, it's slightly offset. So that I could kind of fit this in perfectly with the train tracks when we originally built it. So we're just gonna start from, actually we should move all the way back here when we do this upgrade, just to make sure everything looks the part. And then obviously we'll need to move all the way down here. And hopefully we can actually just align to this segment, because I think that is decently aligned. And we're gonna click. And it certainly looks the part. It actually looks quite all right. Now, there's a bit of a mismatch here because they are aligned to different parts of the node. So let's see if we can just redraw this symbol curve. I think that would be the easiest approach. Gonna make sure we've got a bit of snapping enabled, and I guess we could go with elevated. And then we'll see if we can find the spot. Yoink. Let's see how that looks. It looks like it's gonna do the job, which is what we need. Let's see about the configuration down here. I don't actually know in which direction this traffic prefers to move, so I think we'll just have to look and see. I think I'm just gonna speed things up. No, wait, I shouldn't. I'm not gonna speed things up while I'm burning cash. I don't have to actively try and destroy things. But I would say generally it looks like there's a pretty even distribution here on the traffic directions and the paths they're trying to take as they get off the main bridge span. So maybe this might just be enough. I think we're gonna sit tight and wait for a little while. Once again, I can't really afford to kind of over-engineer it. Not for now at least. So let's see if we can have this clear up while we try to tackle the actual economy. Okay, so now that we've established that raising taxes further would probably do more harm than good, we're gonna have to kind of think out of the box in terms of where we can like scrape together additional revenue, or alternatively cut existing services. That's also an option. I guess the issue is that if I look across the coverage of our services, a lot of them aren't quite fully adequate. So it's not like there's a ton of money to save here. I don't really have any bloated budgets to work with, at least. It is a trick up our sleeve, but of course this is also going to hurt demand and future growth of the county, which would bring in more revenue. So, you know, it's a really fine line to balance here. Now, there is one area where we've always had a massive issue, and that is the county's electricity production, because we've never been able to satisfy the county's demand through our own production facilities. In fact, we are importing almost as much as we're actually producing, and I'm pretty certain this is a pretty expensive thing to have going. At least if I look at service trade, we've got 853k going to imported electricity, and that's not a lot in terms of like the total outlook here, but it's still quite a bit. So if I could reduce this, maybe even start exporting electricity, that might be like a financial adventure that could bring in some new money. Now, we've got a couple of ways of achieving this, or at least pursuing this goal, and I think the first thing we could do would be to invest in some upgrades to these wind turbines, because they're actually decently efficient, at least now that we've already shelved out the cash to actually build these. This upgrade in particular, the advanced rotor system, is 2.5k extra a month. But it also does provide 2.5 extra megawatts a month. So if I do a little basic math, I'm talking really basic math as I barely passed high school math here, I think this is worthwhile, at least when the efficiency is a bit higher because of higher wind speeds. But you know, of course, this is kind of the gamble we do have to take with wind power here. So yeah, I mean, let's try it out. I'm just gonna look at the numbers again so that we can kind of keep progress of things. We're producing 88, of course this does fluctuate a bit, and we're importing 88. Let's commit to a full set of rotor upgrades across the entire Cape Autumn wind farm here. Alright, so the total cost of this upgrade was 135k upfront, and then of course the monthly expenditure. It has increased our production, obviously, but we're not going to reap the full benefits until it actually starts becoming a little more windy. So I guess for once we're actually going to hope for more wind so that we can actually see the impact of this. This is also why the expenditure to imported electricity hasn't moved all that much, because we are still highly dependent on imports. Man, they're just snailing along. Anyways, my next idea is a bit of a leap of faith, because I've only once before placed down the geothermal power plant in City Skylines 2, and I think that was in a build where I had like unlimited money. So the actual financial viability of this solution don't really know. It states here that they are somewhat expensive to build and maintain, but I expect it to be less polluting and just more efficient given the fact that it utilizes groundwater, and I actually think we have a few deposits throughout the map. I haven't added any myself because much of the map is just based on a vanilla map, but we do have a few deposits, or groundwater sources rather. Let's have a look. One of them kind of stretches beneath some of the cool nature stuff we built in the previous episode, so I think I might go for this location. It's a bit of a gamble because at this point in time, 750k is a lot of money to invest in something which I just don't know the viability of, but it looks cool and it sounds cool. And I mean, Massachusetts is supposed to be like fairly progressive, so something that is not as polluting as, you know, clean coal might be the way to go. Yeah, I don't know. Let's get it unlocked and give it a go. Here we've got it, and I just need to enable the overlay here so that I ensure we get the full 150 megawatts potential production. And let's just pause the game before I mess anything up. I think I'm just gonna place it right at the very heart of this water deposit, just like that. Now this does kind of interfere a bit with the terraforming we did in the previous episode, but we'll make this look pretty. We'll make it look real good. Let's just make sure we get a basic road connection going. And we might as well just spend a bit of additional time making sure that it looks nice, has a space for a bit of parking and whatnot. So we're gonna make sure we've got a lane just connecting it to the grid. And then I think I'm gonna grab one of these small national roads I've created with the road builder to just kind of flank it as the main road. Something like this, so that we can also fit in a bit of parking lots and whatnot for the employees. We're just gonna make sure this road leads to, well, I guess nowhere for now, but it's gonna lead somewhere one day, and then we'll just make sure we connect to the rest of the existing road grid. I guess it's pretty realistic that all major infrastructure projects have some unforeseen costs. But in my case, I don't worry as much about wages as I do the actual costs of the amount of trees and bushes I place when I start detailing, because I wonder how much money I've actually spent on this across Easthaven County, but it's probably a lot. Anyways, I do think the additional detailing really added a bit of character and kind of blended the facility in a little better with the surroundings. Now it's all about adding the power lines. And we're gonna go for the overground versions because I don't think they're ugly. I think they're a wonderful detailing feature even. So I think we're gonna make two connections. We're going to connect to the grid around the industrial site and airport, and then maybe cross this strait to connect to some form of transformer station in West Point, which I probably need to add because we don't actually have a transformer station here in the first place. So I'm just gonna add it up by this hill, I think. Right here. We'll get rid of this house. And then we're just gonna run a power line across this island and connect it up. Now, as soon as I branch out from this, I'm going to disable snapping, and then I'm gonna make sure that I get as long stretches as possible before I spawn, as you can see, an additional tower, because I think that looks a little better. Let's see, we're going this way, so it should be fairly simple. I might try to do something cheeky with Move It here. I'm not sure how well it's gonna work or if it's gonna look completely unrealistic, but I do enjoy a really, really long span in terms of like islands and stuff. So is this going to look all right? Can I find the power lines? I think it's gonna look fairly all right actually. Maybe I'm just gonna elevate the base right here quite a bit. Oh, it's going to automatically transform into the larger versions if I do that with Move It. That is so cool. I actually didn't know that was a feature, but my goodness, that is cool. So cool. I know once again I'm being super nerdy about something that maybe shouldn't really matter, but yeah. Let's try to get this connected. Alright, so that is the first connection to West Point, and we'll get the second connection in place as well. We're gonna place an additional transformer station. I know this all costs money, but generally the electricity network is kind of overloaded in the first place, so I think this is a worthwhile investment. Just like that. I'm gonna clear some of the trees that line the same path as these towers, because that is generally no bueno. It's gonna make them kind of stand out a little more as well, make them look a little cooler. And I mean, I did add them overground as a detailing feature, so we might as well just go all the way and make sure that they carve a clean path through all the forest bits. This turned out to be a surprisingly cool installation, so at least we have the aesthetics going for us if it turns out to be a financial disaster. But there's really only one way to find out. We're currently 34,000 in the red, paying 833k a month for importing electricity. Let's hit play and see if this changes anything. And hopefully it works at full capacity right from the get-go, otherwise I'm screwed. Oh, it does. Perfect. Let's see how this actually affects our economy. Okay, we're seeing another drop in the cost we're spending on importing electricity. I wonder if we'll actually start exporting for once. I mean, we should. This plan should cover everything and more. So I'm hoping we'll see the negative here disappear and magically turn into a positive. I don't know how much we can export, but I'm hopeful. The economy is looking a lot better already, so it does seem like it was worthwhile. We're almost about to go into the green. Yes! Woo! I'm rich. Oh man, Oh, okay. As soon as it goes into the green, I'm like, let's plant another forest, spend another million on the trees. Let's see how this is actually going. So electricity 170. I mean, this should be enough to actually... Why am I not exporting? If I'm producing 280 megawatts almost and consuming 185, why am I still importing some stuff? Is there parts of the grid that is bottlenecked and forced to import, or has the game just not kind of calculated everything just yet? I'm not quite sure. I think we have to wait for a little while. I wonder if the issue is that I am missing a connection between these major lines and this major one. I should hope this is enough of a connection, but it probably isn't, as it's not a major power line, so we're just gonna give this a go. And I think this time around I'm gonna go for like an underground configuration. We're just gonna move from the transformer station in West Point out into the middle of the sea here, connect to this segment, and then see whether that actually changes this figure so that we're starting to export our surplus. There we are. That's the missing key. Okay, so that was a little more complex than I initially anticipated, but a really cool feature regardless. So I think with a few minutes of the simulation running, we're gonna see an actual surplus in electricity exportation, which is gonna be so cool. Oh my goodness, we are swimming in cash. This is wonderful. It actually worked. it actually worked. We're now producing enough. Finally. We're only 51 episodes in. Man, I rock at this game. Okay, so things are now looking a lot more positive. Alright. I was maybe a little naive to assume that this one change to our utility setup would magically fix our economy. The fact seems to be, now that I've let the simulation run for a little bit, that it has been a massive improvement and the deficit isn't nearly as big as it used to, but it's not gonna be the only change needed to fix things. So while this figure continues to jump up and down, maybe affected by things like wind generation and the amount of electricity we can actually export, I think we need to work on increasing the size of our taxpayer base now that we've concluded that it's probably not feasible to raise our tax levels any further. And we do actually have a bit of demand split between industrial and high-density residential demand, and while the industrial demand is fairly straightforward to satisfy, I'm just gonna click this icon to get a bit more insight into what type of high-density residential demand we actually have. Because since cost of living and the amount of students in the county is driving this demand, I'm assuming it's primarily low-rent housing more than like actual condo towers. Now, in a utopian world, you will have high-quality, affordable living on pristine locations. In the real world, though, we're gonna find ourselves a nice highway intersected with a boring office district and an airport. And then we're gonna add some public housing right here. Because that seems more likely. I shouldn't laugh, that's kind of morbid, but yeah, you get the idea. I think we're gonna steal this 4-lane two-way road we built with the road builder and just commit to a little upgrade or downgrade, depending on how you see it, just so we get some sidewalks in place here. Maybe even have sidewalks. No, the sidewalks are actually just gonna end here in a bit of nothingness because city planning is cool. And we're gonna move into buildings. We're gonna search for rent. We'd find it. I like to control the types of like low rent housing I'm building because these are usually built as like major projects. We have a pretty clear example of that right here. And we're gonna let the size of this lot kind of define what we are looking for. So we can only go 3 deep. And then I think we're gonna go for some vanilla looking stuff. Not too tall, maybe use 2 heights in combination. That does add a bit of interest. And then perhaps these 3x3 versions that do have a bit of on-site parking. Because there isn't any parking allowed alongside Summerfield Street, as it's now called. And we'll add it in a similar configuration of a like a small one and a tall one, and then maybe squeeze 1 small unit in on this side as well. Isn't that cozy? I used recolor to just paint them all in the same color scheme and then added a key to the highway segment running literally right behind the buildings. Anyways, let's just increase the size of this district. While also making sure we actually get a proper name for it, because I got plenty of fun suggestions for this super boring suburban styled office park. And since the office park is quite literally next to the airport, I thought this specific suggestion of naming it the boring office park was quite fitting. I'm probably gonna just reduce that to boring park now that it contains more than just an office park but also a bit of public housing. So I've waited just a few minutes for things to settle, and it seems like all the new households here in the boring park public housing projects have now been rented out. And not only that, our high-density residential demand has skyrocketed and it's now completely maxed, so we definitely need more low-rent projects. Fortunately, we have plenty of locations to choose from. We've got lots of available land in the transition suburb here on the west side of Mersey, located between the former streetcar suburb and the more modern sprawling suburb. So I think we're gonna utilize some of this land, but before we get that far, I need to do a bit of naming. So the former streetcar suburb will actually be Stephenson Ridge, based on this comment with a pretty cool reference to the original inventor, it seems, of the streetcar. And for the sprawling suburb, I'll highlight this comment and name it Goosehead, because it maybe sorta looks like a goose. I mean, I don't personally see it, but I like it. Now, what I don't like to see as I sit here desperately trying to fix our economy is all these water shortage pop-ups that have just spawned across the entire county. I don't have the funds to just increase utility coverage. I don't have that kind of money, so I'm hopeful we've got some sort of issue or bottleneck at one of our pumping stations. I don't even think I have a pumping station. I think I have plenty of towers, and then I should have a groundwater facility right here in West Point. It's garbage accumulation. Yeah, garbage just continues to be a problem throughout, but in my defense, a weak defense I admit, but in my defense, this place is just so complex. So how do we actually solve this? I think it's probably worthwhile to actually just turn this into a district and just choose the cheapest garbage collection option I can, and then designate this district as its only like point of interest. Because I do have a mod adding more recycling options, and I do have a few cheap options. We've got the small city recycling center with one garbage truck and 1,000 or 1 ton of storage, I think that means. So let's just place that right here. It's a nice little custom asset. We'll click it and we'll just assign it to Cooper Croft. Right, okay, I guess that can stay for now. So I think that's a proper start. But oh man, we also have garbage pile up at our all new geothermal power plant. And garbage really is like the silent economy killer here in cities too, because it does reduce the overall efficiency of your building's output up to about 50%. So it seems we're sitting at minus 32% so far, and I bet that's costing us some money. Yeah, we're not making the same on exporting electricity that we were before, and if this continues to get worse, we're not going to export anything at all. So we need some sort of facility out here as well. So I think I'm going to take a bit of a gamble here and do yet another investment. Yeah, I am. Because this more recycling mod also has the biogas power generator, so it can use organic waste to generate energy, and it has 6 garbage trucks. So I'm hopeful that if we place that out here and we assign the trucks to specifically cover the geothermal power plant, at least as a start, then maybe we can kind of break even by actually being able to export all the new electricity and even create a bit of electricity based on the organic waste here. But it's very low. It's 3 megawatts total, so it's not a gamey cheaty thing, but it could work. 200,000. I'm gonna just place it. I'm gonna snap it onto the actual geothermal power plant because I think it could look like a cool addition. Just gonna place it here, and we're gonna, yeah, this is a bit of a gamble, but it does feel fun to play Easthaven and being afraid of spending 200k. I don't remember ever having that fear. So we're just gonna make a simple district here and name it the let's see, Easthaven Geothermal Plant. And then we're gonna grab this biogas power generator and we're just gonna assign that to the district, and hopefully this will all kind of, you know, hopefully this is a good decision. That's what I'm trying to say. So please, it doesn't have water, but at least it removed all the garbage from the geothermal plant, so that that's 50 megawatts we were missing out on. So that's good. I think this should be feasible. Of course, I need water here, so I'm hopeful that the solution over here actually works. So will you please spawn dump truck? Okay, so what? Where's the let's see if we can find this fella. Where are you? You're stuck in traffic. Destination. Biogas power. Why didn't you start by picking up some actual... This is so bad. Okay, so we're right on the edge of actual output. I don't have any water to spare at all, so yeah, we definitely need to fix this, but I was hoping this solution would actually work. I'm a little worried that the only garbage truck I have, which I had assigned to this district alone, is now stuck in traffic. And it's going all the way down to the generator by the port. I can't explain that, but okay. So I've just removed the small recycling center and made sure that the game is gonna stay paused for a little while, because I noticed a sharp drop in population, which may be due to like prolonged periods of time without clean water access. That would make sense at least. Anyways, this is obviously cutting into my tax revenue, which is just no bueno, because we're in a bit of a bad state already. I don't think there's any way around having like a proper dedicated recycling center out here on West Point. That should fix this issue and cover the rest of the city. The problem is that's a $300,000 investment, which is more than 25% of our current cash balance. So before we do anything, I'm just gonna get a full overview of the garbage management and recycling situation throughout the county. Let's bring up the overlay and have a look. So in general, we are processing more garbage than we are producing, or at least we have the processing capacity. So that's great. It tells me we don't need a whole lot more. But given the pretty crazy geography of Easthaven County, we might just need more because of the bottlenecks in the traffic situation and the distances, like the travel time for the garbage trucks. We'll see. Let's start by the Nugget Island incineration plant at the very heart of the county. Now, this bad boy has 50 garbage trucks in continuous use, and it doesn't have any specific operating districts. And this basically means that it's going to operate throughout the entire county wherever this is needed. And obviously this is needed, so I think we're just gonna let this big fella work its magic and not restrict or change anything. Then we're gonna move on to the Chowder Bay Recycling Center just east of Nugget Island. Now, this one has 6 out of 9 garbage trucks in use, so it may be able to incorporate a bit more in terms of operating districts. It's currently serving all of Chowder Bay as well as most of Cape Rose, which might need a bit of an update, because we did add we added the Cape Rose Garbage Logistics Center in Forge Point, which is a major job hub with 2,000 jobs. But it's actually only set to operate in Forge Point, which means that only 2 of 15 garbage trucks are in use. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty bad. We're gonna change that up and make sure that this one is actually serving all of Cape Rose, potentially dipping into Chowder Bay as well. Let's see, I think we're gonna start by just isolating this to Cape Rose, and then we're going to free up a bit of the capacity of the Chowder Bay Center by deselecting these points out here in Cape Rose, because this facility should be more than able to handle this lower density area. Now let's move a bit further westward, where we have the PFJ, so that is the Port of Fort John Metal Recycling Facility. Now this one has 6 out of 7 vehicles in use, and if I recall, yeah, it's pretty much only serving the port and a few residential areas. So I guess if we are really trying to maximize things here, we could include East Thornton as well. But it's very important that we can always handle the port, because as soon as garbage starts piling up alongside the many freight rail facilities or the actual cargo harbors, things turn pretty sour. So I don't want that. We've also got a biogas generator out here by the port, which only has 2 vehicles in use, despite having quite a few operating districts. That's a little weird. I think we'll add Back Bay and West Thornton to that, and hopefully that's gonna spawn a bit of extra in terms of the garbage trucks, because, I mean, we've got a few collection issues here in Fort John. Anyways, moving even further west, or northwest I should say, we've got the most recent biogas power generator we just added. Now we've only set that to serve the Easthaven Geothermal plant, but with 3 of 6 garbage trucks in use, we could probably include the airport district and the Emerson Industrial Estate as well. I think that should be sufficient, and we definitely need a bit of picking up out here. And to wrap up the overview, the City of Mercy, West Point and the rural area of Cape Autumn doesn't have dedicated recycling centers, but generally this has been alright without much accumulation issues. But oh wait, this is my second groundwater pumping station, and it's also plagued by garbage piling up. I'm starting to really understand the water shortage here. Anyways, generally, it seems like garbage pickup here is being handled just fine by the massive incineration plant, except for my water pumping stations, which are coincidentally the most important facilities in the entire county, but oh well. Anyways, with this fresh overview, I think one change we can make has to do with one of the recycling centers here in either Chowder Bay or Cape Rose. Now, I've obviously made a planning mistake here, because if I were to place 2 recycling centers today, I would switch these 2 around. This one has 15 garbage trucks, but a pretty low density area, and this one has a total of 9 garbage trucks for a much higher density area. I can technically in-game just relocate it, but where's the fun in that? We're trying to make a challenge here, and we can't just godlike relocate buildings. I say that now, and in the next episode I'm gonna do something totally godlike. Anyways, my suggestion would be that we grab the Cape Rose Garbage Logistics Center, and then we tell it to actually serve the entirety of Chowder Bay as well. And then we're going to temporarily shut off or shut down the Chowder Bay Recycling Center, just to kind of see how that works. And then we're going to build a new one up here in Cooper Croft, which is going to directly serve West Point as well as Cape Autumn, and hopefully thereby being able to kind of handle these areas dedicated and make sure our water pumping stations aren't bogged down. So with all of Chowder Bay now assigned the Cape Rose Logistics Center, let's grab this building here and shut it off, or rather deactivate it. Now this massively reduces the amount of money I have to spend for actual upkeep, but I can always turn it on again if I need the extra capacity or if this just doesn't work out. So it's a pretty cool feature. Anyways, we're moving out to Cooper Croft, and I think what we're gonna do is we're just gonna add a few industrial roads out here so that we can add a small industrial estate here if that's what we want to. We do have the demand for it at least. So we'll just add a couple of quick roads, nothing fancy, something like this. We'll upgrade this road as well so that it kind of makes sense capacity wise. And then we're gonna get this one placed. It's the, let's see, I'm gonna place the right one. So the Garbage Logistics Center has 15 garbage trucks at a cost of 200,000, while this one has 5 at a cost of 300,000. But this one has much less in terms of storage capacity, so it's much more dependent on having a processing site. Fortunately, we have the massive incineration plant, so we should be able to actually utilize this version. So that's 100k less than I initially budgeted for, which is great. Gonna freeform place it here and make sure the roads kinda align a bit. So let's select our new West Point Garbage Logistics Center and assign it to Cooper Croft exclusively. Just to kind of start out, we are hitting play and crossing fingers that one of these trucks will serve this groundwater pumping station, otherwise there's something wrong with this building. Oh, let's see. Oh yes, beautiful. Okay, I think this is actually enough for us to have enough output. It is, because I can't imagine this one is super bogged down by garbage. 96 efficiency. Okay, so it's a pretty recent problem. So it is being regularly picked up, just not regular enough. Hopefully this new plant or logistics center will actually help with that. So let's just get all of this stuff assigned. All right, pretty terrible traffic accident on the northern outskirts of Cape Autumn. I think my big question here is, how did a car and a trailer end up on the hillside as a consequence of this crash? I mean, there's like 100 meters and the trailer is on fire while the car, a small eco box hatchback thingy up here. I mean, oh man. Anyways, with the water and garbage management situations hopefully in check now, we can get back to what actually matters, increasing our tax revenue base, and we still have thundering high density residential demand, so we're gonna go straight back to building out the low rent projects we had envisioned here for the transition suburb. So I think I might just get rid of this road here, and then we're kind of dedicating these two awkwardly shaped blocks to a low rent project. We're gonna find it and find just what we need. I've already narrowed it down to these 6x6 Chinese themed low rent buildings. To find them, I just filter for rent. And then the reason I want something that is pretty large in lot size is that now we actually have the available space. So it's just going to increase the building variety we use. I'm thinking mainly of using the shorter ones, but maybe 1 or 2 point towers. Yeah, let's grab 1 point tower here. And then we're going to have anarchy enabled with no snapping so that we can just freely place it. Now I don't want to crop into the surface parking that's at the front of this lot, but I don't mind cropping into some of the remainder of the surface because I don't think that matters all that much. So if we just align the actual tower, the tallest structure of this project, next to the main crossing of this area, I think that's a good start. Although we may want to do one more tower actually, that's a little taller. Yank. Then we're gonna grab the shorter versions, these level 2 versions, and just get a few more placed. So let's place another one adjacent to the main streets here, and then we'll just rotate it, get a version placed over here, and we should be able to squeeze in at least one more structure on this corner. And we can fit in, if not 2, then at least one more structure here as well. I wouldn't mind trying to align this to some of the minor suburban streets. I think a sizable section 9-ish public housing project like this would probably have like its own postal code and maybe its own little district as well. So I think we'll just do that for good old role-playing purposes. So let's see, we'll just make sure we get this separated, and then maybe we'll just call this Stephenson Estate. Oh, no, wait, we can make it more weird. We're gonna call it Stephenson Village, I think. Yes, so obviously the Stephenson is from the same inspiration as the former streetcar suburb, and then village, because why not? Now, if we're being a little cheeky, we might be able to actually just squeeze in a few additional buildings here just to up the density. I do think we can have another lot on this block as well. So let's just see if we can just... It's gonna be a bit of a squeeze, but I think it's gonna work. We're gonna add plenty of trees and pathways throughout this area, which is so common if you look at areas that look like this through cities like Boston and Philadelphia and New York and the likes. So we could just squeeze 2 buildings in here, I think. Now the Stephenson Village project should be able to keep our high density commercial demand at bay for a little while, because there's 1,500 households within the village, which is pretty impressive. Let's jump into a bit of detailing, adding a few basic paths and some large oak trees as well. The intentions behind these projects during the 60s and 70s were usually pretty damn good, but of course sometimes they kind of fell into disrepair. They became, you know, hotspots for low resource, low income families and crime hotbeds and all that stuff, but that wasn't always the case. So I'm actually imagining Stephenson Village to be a decently nice place to live. You're really close to a really awesome city on its own. It's probably pretty affordable as well, and there's going to be a lot of green spaces. But let's get the paths and all the green spaces actually added in. Now, instead of adding some vanilla paths, I think I'm going to experiment with adding some net lanes and then using some invisible pedestrian paths to kind of create the path network instead. Alright, so this place definitely turned out a little more colorful than I initially planned for, but these buildings are super modular with recolor and then just adding some large cat murals, because why not? Really helps add a lot of character. And I guess as soon as I placed this new playground, which is super colorful on its own, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. But I think it fits. It kind of fits the bill if we're assuming that this is actually a pretty nicely maintained, newly renovated place. It's something, you know, it's a place where you want to live. Like, you go on a waiting list and you probably have to meet like certain criteria in terms of like annual income and stuff like that. But you're happy to actually get in here and then stay here for as long as you can. So on the cat mural high note, that is gonna be a wrap to this episode. We are not quite out of this financial mess just yet. We need to turn the trend into a positive, and then we need to make some bank again so we can do some big investments. Or we could just take a loan. Let me know what you guys think we need next. Anyways, we did manage to improve quite a few things. I'm pretty happy with the slight improvements to the garbage management and recycling system here in Easthaven. It's really tricky given the tricky geography and all the choke points we have for all these bridges and a few tunnels, but I think we've definitely seen a bit of an improvement. And then there's the improvements to our electrical grid, where we are now net exporters of electricity. Now our water utility situation is a little more precarious. Right now we're doing all right, but as you guys can probably see, we'll need to conduct some major investments moving forward if we're really gonna grow the county, and that ties into like having the money to actually do this. So it's gonna be a tricky balancing act in the next many episodes, but hopefully it's gonna be a lot of fun. So as always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, all the wonderful feedback and comments. I've got just a bit of summer vacation left and then I'll be at it full swing again. Can't wait to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.